Hey, so I have a question for you. A pop quiz. Wait. Don't leave. Come back. Nothing bad is going to happen to you if you get it wrong. I'm not going to put you in detention or break your kneecaps or anything. So here's the question. What is the scientific method, or scientific process? Pause the video, take a minute to think of your answer, and then resume. So the answer was ask a question, do background research, construct your hypothesis, do an experiment, collect your data, analyze your data and draw a conclusion. Does the evidence support your hypothesis? If yes, create a theory. Continue to gather more data to refine theory and explain phenomenon. If no, reform hypothesis. Communicate results to public. Now, if you miss some of these steps, don't worry too much. But hopefully you remember from high school science class that the basic process is form hypothesis, do experiment, collect and analyze data. This is how all good science is done, and the process is central to improving our understanding of the world we live in. But what happens if, during the hypothesis phase, I make a hypothesis like this? I hypothesize that Christopher Walken is a fifth-dimensional being that protects our world from ghost Nazis with a magical aura that can't be seen or felt. Could you test that hypothesis in any way? How would you test for a magical aura that can't be detected by any instrument that collects data on physical phenomena? And this is the key point. Your hypothesis should be as simple as possible, and it should be falsifiable. When we say that it's falsifiable, we mean the assertion must be able to be disproven by observation or experimentation. A famous example illustrating the virtue of falsifiability in science is the sentence, "A fire-breathing dragon lives in my garage." Please note that this is an argument found in a book by Carl Sagan. I'm not actually suggesting a dragon lives in my garage. Do not come to my house looking for a dragon, because you will be disappointed. Allow me to read an excerpt from the chapter in which it appears. "A fire-breathing dragon lives in my garage. Suppose I seriously make such an assertion to you. Surely you'd want to check it out, see for yourself. There have been innumerable stories of dragons over the centuries, but no real evidence. What an opportunity! Show me, you say. I lead you to my garage. You look inside and see a ladder, empty paint cans, an old tricycle, but no dragon. Where's the dragon? You ask. Oh, she's right there, I reply, waving vaguely. I neglected to mention that she's an invisible dragon. You propose spreading flour on the floor of the garage to capture the dragon's footprints. Good idea, I say, but this dragon floats in the air. Then you'll use an infrared sensor to detect the invisible fire. Good idea, but the invisible fire is also heatless. You'll spray paint the dragon and make her visible. Good idea, but she's an incorporeal dragon and the paint won't stick. I counter every physical test you propose with a special explanation of why it won't work. Now, what's the difference between an invisible, incorporeal, floating dragon who spits heatless fire and no dragon at all? If there's no way to disprove my contention, no conceivable experiment that would count against it, what does it mean to say that my dragon exists? Your inability to invalidate my hypothesis is not at all the same thing as proving it true. Claims that cannot be tested, assertions immune to disproof, are veridically worthless, whatever value they may have in inspiring us or in exciting our sense of wonder. What I'm asking you to do comes down to believing, in the absence of evidence, on my say-so. Imagine that, despite none of the tests being successful, you wish to be scrupulously open-minded, so you don't outright reject the notion that there's a fire-breathing dragon in my garage, you merely put it on hold. Present evidence says strongly against it, but if a new body of data emerge, you're prepared to examine it and see if it convinces you. Surely it's unfair of me to be offended at not being believed, or to criticize you for being so stodgy and unimaginative, merely because you've rendered the Scottish verdict of not proved. Imagine that things had gone otherwise. The dragon is invisible, all right, but footprints are being made in the flour as you watch. Your infrared detector reads off scale. The spray paint reveals a jagged crest bobbing in the air before you. No matter how skeptical you might have been about the existence of dragons, to say nothing about invisible ones, you must now acknowledge that there's something here, and that in a preliminary way is consistent with an invisible, fire-breathing dragon. Now another scenario. Suppose it's not just me. Suppose that several of your acquaintances, including people who you're pretty sure don't know each other, all tell you that they have dragons in their garage. But in every case, the evidence is maddeningly elusive. All of us admit we're disturbed at being gripped by so odd a conviction, so ill-supported by the evidence. None of us is a lunatic. We speculate about what it would mean if invisible dragons were really hiding out in garages all over the world, with us humans just catching on. I'd rather it not be true, I tell you. But maybe all those ancient European and Chinese myths about dragons weren't myths at all. Gratifyingly, some dragon-sized footprints in the flower are now reported. But they're never made when a skeptic is looking. An alternative explanation presents itself. On close examination, it seems clear that the footprints could have been faked. Another dragon enthusiast shows up with a burnt finger, and attributes it to a rare physical manifestation of the dragon's fiery breath. But again, other possibilities exist. We understand that there are other ways to burn fingers besides the breath of invisible dragons. Such evidence, no matter how important the dragon advocates consider it, is far from compelling. Once again, the only sensible approach is tentatively to reject the dragon hypothesis, to be open to future physical data, and to wonder what the cause might be that so many apparently sane and sober people share the same strange delusion.
The dragon is not falsifiable. The hypothetical dragon is not a scientific claim.
The individual who proposed that the definition of science should be based on testing falsifiable claims was Karl Popper. He argued that if an unfalsifiable claim is being tested using the scientific hypothesis, test, analyze model, it is pseudoscience. Karl Popper was tackling the problem of demarcation. What counts as science? But if we accept his guideline that scientific claims must be falsifiable, how do we ensure claims are falsifiable? Popper had 7 points that provide a guideline for us when distinguishing science from pseudoscience. 1. It is easy to obtain confirmations or verifications for nearly every theory, if we look for confirmations. 2. Confirmations should count only if they are the result of risky predictions. That is to say, if unenlightened by the theory in question, we should have expected an event which was incompatible with the theory, an event which would have refuted the theory. 3. Every good scientific theory is a prohibition. It forbids certain things to happen. The more a theory forbids, the better it is. 4. A theory which is not refutable by any conceivable event is non-scientific. Irrefutability is not a virtue of a theory, as people often think it is, but a vice. 5. Every genuine test of a theory is an attempt to falsify it or to refute it. Testability is falsifiability, but there are degrees of testability. Some theories are more testable, more exposed to refutation than others. They take, as it were, greater risks. 6. Confirming evidence should not count except when it is the result of a genuine test of a theory. And this means that it is presented as a serious but unsuccessful attempt to falsify the theory. 7. Some genuinely testable theories, when found to be false, are still upheld by their admirers. For example, introducing ad hoc some auxiliary assumption, or by reinterpreting the theory ad hoc in such a way that it escapes refutation. Such procedure is always possible, but it rescues the theory from refutation only at the price of destroying, or at least lowering, its scientific status.
Claims like these are often found in pseudoscience. They may conduct experiments which use a scientific model, or have scientific trappings, but are not falsifiable in nature, and frequently employ scientific-sounding terms to mask this. Examples are often present in the fields of alternative medicine, such as claims that a treatment only works if the person believes in it, but they still continue to claim its effectiveness outside of the placebo effect. It is not possible to independently test the efficacy of treatments such as these, or investigate claims of human energy fields that cannot be detected with equipment that analyzes the physical universe. Another example would be psychics who make claims that are broad enough to always be true. Now, there is some debate amongst members of the scientific community whether Popper's concept of falsifiability is the definitive criteria for science. And it may be that some forms of pseudoscience make claims that are falsifiable. But in general, the falsification test is a helpful metric for determining what is and isn't science. So the next time you hear someone making a claim that can't be tested or disproven in any way, just take note that they may have an invisible incorporeal dragon in their garage.